Hello, folks. This is going to be a quick video. This is Brad Mills. In case you don't know, I wanted to give a quick thought process to parents out there, really, or anybody that's kind of considering going to Black Lives Matter rallies. I've had people message me a couple times saying like, people are feeling like they really want to go support local rallies and stuff, but they're worried about catching coronavirus. So I wanted to just I've given this advice a couple of times. I just wanted to get it out there for everybody so everybody hears it. So, yes, coronavirus is something you should pay attention to, and yes, you should take precautions. But I really do feel that if you're in a small town, like especially if you're in Canada, and a small town or a small city or something like that, where it's not likely to turn violent at all, then I would think it's completely fine to go to the rally. All you got to do is just keep your distance from people, just practice social distancing, and you can support the cause. And you can go and not stress about bringing back coronavirus, but some common practices you can do to look. Someone here saying you're more likely to be killed by a rioter than the virus statistically. So that's why I said if you're in Canada or a place that's not likely to have violent protests, if it's an actual rally or a peaceful protest, like a small town in Canada or a small town in rural United States or somewhere over the world. These Black Lives Matter rallies are happening all over the world. So I think it's fine to go if you're practicing social distancing, if you're wearing a mask, and if potentially you have gloves. You don't need the gloves, but if you're wearing a mask or a cloth face covering, at least keep your distance from people, 6 feet. Try to stay 6 feet away. But mostly the risk is for when you're in a confined like tube. If you're in an airplane with 30 or 40 people and they could potentially have coronavirus, and you're sitting there for hours and it's recirculating the virus particles in the airplane, that's a bit more risky. If you're outside in the open air and keeping your distance 6 feet away from somebody and you've got a mask on, there's much less likelihood that you're going to actually catch coronavirus because the wind will just blow it away. And I mean, I think that if you're in a city, like if you're in a big city like New York City or something like that, the risk is a bit more likely that you'll catch COVID because the protest could turn violent. And I mean, look, I'll just share my screen real quick here. The infectious disease specialists in the U.S. are now calling for the U.S. police to stop using the tear gas to disperse protesters because it causes people to cough, and then large groups of people coughing during a pandemic is not a good thing. So I would say, like, you see in the U.S. that people are contracting COVID from going to protests. But let me pull up a picture here. Like, I mean, look, this is not so bad. People are kind of keeping a bit of distance. That's lots of masks. People are wearing masks. That's the responsible thing to do. I mean, if you're in a place like Iraq or China or Brazil or Chile or whatever, and people are not wearing masks, like, this is kind of an idea of what not to do. So I just think that if you want to go and support the Black Lives Matter movement or go to a local rally and just show your solidarity, and you do not plan on looting and rioting and getting violent, then you should be 100% okay. A proper protocol for coming home. A lot of us now wash our groceries after we get the groceries. We've never had to do this in history before, where you have to wash your groceries after you get them. So you just want to kind of take proper precautions when you come home. You know, have a change of clothes in the garage and take your clothes off in the garage, put them in a bag or an empty Amazon box or something like that, and then just go get a shower. And then you've washed yourself completely. And then when you come home, like, wash your hands first. When you come home, just put on gloves, or just, it doesn't even really matter. You don't even have to put on gloves. Just wash the clothes right away, and then wash them And what do you have to risk, really? I mean, if you've got coronavirus on your clothes somehow from being in the protests, you just didn't drag it into your house. You kept it in the garage in a box. You got a shower, you wash the clothes, and then you don't have to worry. And the other thing to remember is that if you're young, if you're a kid, like a lot of kids now really feel compelled to want to go to a Black Lives Matter rally, and especially in smaller areas where it's not likely to turn violent. I think it's important because kids want to feel that they belong to something, and especially if the kid is Black or a minority and they really want to, like, they associate with the cause behind, the Black Instagram squares, the Blackout Tuesday that happened, and the Black Lives Matter movement. I would say that because we've flattened the curve, it's safe enough now to let your kid, your teenager, I mean, not like a not like a 6-year-old kid or something, go by themselves, but to let a teenager maybe take one of the parents, go with them, and if things look like it's going to turn violent, then just leave. But for the most part, it's just going to be most likely like solidarity, a show of solidarity, and holding up signs, and making a statement and feeling like you belong to an important cause and a movement. So that's it. That's my advice for anybody that's thinking about going to a Black Lives Matter rally. At this point in the pandemic, I think we're ready to, the government's kind of like taking steps to reopen. And if you're in a city, I would say it's probably like a big city that is, maybe there's bad apples in the crowd. They're anarchists, and they're going to try to like break shop windows and loot and stuff like that. Yeah, you don't want to take your kid to a protest during a pandemic in a big city like Chicago or New York or something like that. At the moment, I wouldn't do that. But if it's, say, like, I'm from Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, if it's Sydney, Nova Scotia, or like right now I live in near London, Ontario. If it's London, Ontario, like, go ahead. There's not really a risk there anymore because we flattened the curve. And yeah, this person says just be smart about it, right? So I feel like now the risk is pretty low. Oh, and he's in Chicago. So the risk to catching COVID is pretty low. We flattened the curve pretty well. And even if you catch coronavirus, I was one of those people that was like screaming to shut everything down in February because I saw it was coming. Obviously, the proper response is not to shut everything down and keep it shut down this long. That's crazy. We need to reopen smartly. We need to have proper testing. We need to have masks available for everybody. We need to have isolate the sick, isolate the immunocompromised, isolate people who were actually confirmed with COVID. We need to be smart about how we reopen, and we need to do contact tracing the manual way, not the digital way. We don't want to give up our rights to the government to track us everywhere we go. We need, and in Ontario, the government has hired 2,000 contact tracers. So they're doing manual contact tracing, like interview style, not infringement of freedoms and human rights style, where they will ask you, like, who did you go on a flight recently? Where have you been recently that you may have exposed people? And then they'll follow up by phone with those people. And then those people come in and get tested. That's how you stop an epidemic. And so as we reopen over the next month or so, because protests are happening right now. Protests have been happening for a long time. It's not just about Black Lives Matter. Back in May, I mean, there's been protests all over the world. Like, I don't know if you can, hopefully you can see my screen here, but all over the world, there's been protests from April and May. People just wanting to go back to work, and they don't want the economy to get destroyed. Some of it was kind of ridiculous. Like, this group of people was protesting the lockdown, promoting the 5G conspiracy. But a lot of it was people upset with the lockdowns and the economy. Like, Brazil's president was actually joining protesters more than once. So there's been protests happening for months now, and now we see we see protests happening on a much bigger scale in the US because of the George Floyd murder. And that galvanized everybody that was already pissed off, already, usually people are distracted by sports, distracted by work, and they don't confront the issues that we have going on with in life. And when that was taken away, when people were no longer distracted by work, they're losing jobs, they can't have sports as an outlet. It just, people were ready. People were ready to snap. And the killing of George Floyd was the spark that lit this insane event that we see all over the US, and now over the world it's happening too. So the government knows that they need to get things back to normal. And look, you can see as early, it was last month, the United States started stocking up on riot gear. So yeah, there's a story in The Intercept that was federal government buys riot gear, increases security funding, and citing the coronavirus pandemic. So, I mean, the government knew that civil unrest was likely because of the economic crisis and the COVID lockdown. So it's not surprising to see that people have reacted this way. I think these riots would have happened about the COVID lockdown, maybe not to this extent, had this cause not taken the banner. And now it's kind of like we're seeing a mix of Black Lives Matter, Occupy Wall Street, and the anti-Trump movement. And it's obviously not the agenda of Black Lives Matter to go and loot stores, right? So that's not the same thing. So if you're in a small town or something, there's a Black Lives rally, you're likely to be completely fine. I don't think the police are going to get violent. I don't think it's going to be tear gas and anything like that. People are afraid right now. Parents are afraid. Young people are kind of afraid, but people are also pissed off. And if you're in a smaller area, I don't think that you have much risk. I think that going and showing your solidarity and joining the cause is completely fine. He says, I go out once a week still in Chicago, and looting is not protesting. Well, I think a lot of people can agree with that. So I'm going to wrap this video up here, but in Ontario, we just extended the state of emergency to the end of this month, which I gotta be honest, I was frustrated with. I'm sitting here thinking, like, what has the government done over the last 3 months? Why have they not gotten it to a point where we can open back up slowly and responsibly? But we just have to wait. I mean, they're trying to take steps, but where are the masks? Like, where are all the masks? The government can't afford to keep paying you to not do anything and stay home. Like that can't go on indefinitely. And so we're definitely going to have to slowly reopen. But we see in Wuhan, China, what's happening. I'll show you another. I'll share my screen here. Wuhan, China, they had to recently shut down again. And well, I don't have the link for this, but Wuhan had to recently shut down again, and there was like coronavirus testing, mobile units everywhere. They wanted to test every single person in Wuhan. And they did 1.5 million tests a day, I think, for the last few days. And there's like 13 million people in Wuhan, China. So they're saying that there's like barely any cases, but they're shutting everything down. Like they had to go back into lockdown again. So we can see what happens with coronavirus when you start to go back out into the world and in these big cities where protests happen and people are getting together and they're not wearing masks. That's not good for the virus because it's a perfect way to spread around. And in bigger cities, it's easier for it to spread faster. So we will probably see some cities in Canada and the US, as they reopen, have to shut down again, partially at least, because it can be spread asymptomatically and you cannot show symptoms for up to 14 days. Then it's going to take a few weeks after these protests to show the results in these big cities like New York and Chicago and all this. So for young people who, it's mostly young people that are out there protesting, the virus is very, very not deadly, right? It's 0.2% case fatality rate for people under the age of 60. For young people, like all the kids that you see on the videos out looting stores and stuff, the case fatality rate for them for coronavirus is like 0.05%. So for young kids, this is not a real serious thing. I mean, it's a lot worse than the flu. If you look at the case fatality rate for the flu for those young kids, it's like 20 times worse. Coronavirus is 20 times worse, but still it's very low. So COVID death rate is like 0.2% for anyone under the age of 60. The flu death rate is 0.015% for anyone under the age of 60. So when you hear people say, oh, COVID is only a couple times worse than the flu, that's a lie. That's just either a lie or bad logic or bad math. Because you have to compare the same age groups. They're comparing the entire death rate of the flu, which includes the most at-risk group, the old people that die at a higher rate. And then they remove those old people from the COVID numbers when they're saying 0.2%. They're saying, oh, well, look, it's only twice as worse as the flu. It's actually 10 to 20 times worse than the flu for all age groups when you compare them one-to-one, except for young kids. Young kids, it's like pretty much non-existent to see young kids die from COVID. The flu is actually more deadlier for babies and stuff than COVID is for some reason. We don't know why. But basically, all I'm trying to say is that as we reopen, if you're young, if you're healthy, if your child wants to go, you know, your teenager, your young adult or whatever wants to go to a Black Lives Matter rally, if you want to go to the grocery store, if businesses are reopening and you want to go shopping, you want to kind of get back to some sort of normalcy, and you're healthy and you know, you don't have comorbidities and stuff, I think you're probably safe. You just gotta be careful around your elderly people in your family, and be respectful of the rules and keep your distance and just be smart about it. So I think as we reopen, it's going to be kind of weird to getting back to a normal routine, but we kind of need to have some sort of normalcy come back. And this may be, if you're sitting here and you may be thinking like, oh, should I go to one of these rallies? Like, this may be your chance to go out and try to become normal again and have some sort of normalcy come back into your life and support a good cause while you're at it. But again, practice good hygiene, take hand sanitizer with you, take some clear glasses if you have them with you, because not only for like pepper spray and stuff like that, but you don't want to have people, if someone's coughing or sneezing or whatever, just take the glasses, put them in your pocket, and then if someone's around you that's coughing or sneezing, put the glasses on. If the police come and you see them, they have gas masks and stuff, put the glasses on. You know, so Daryl says social distancing is here to stay despite the protests. And I think for a little while, yeah, it's going to also, social distancing is something that's going to be here for quite a bit, especially if we get a wave 2, people are going to realize, oh, it isn't gone, it's completely. And, you know, everybody wants to be hopeful that it's just going to go away, but likely it's going to come back in the fall, because as we reopen in the summer and we enjoy the summer and enjoy each other's company, it's been months since most of us have seen family members and hung out with friends and stuff, and we sort of get back together. We're reintroducing the virus's contagion path, right? That needs people to spread. And as social distancing and lockdown removed people from the equation, so that's why it wasn't spreading or slowed down the spreading. And as we get back into some sort of normalcy, we're going to see more cases spike. But again, young people are probably most likely, like 99.9% likely that they'll get over it. And young people will, maybe they'll have a bad flu, but a lot of young people are asymptomatic as well. So just now's the time. It's not time to worry, but also keep in your mind that over the age of 60, the coronavirus is extremely deadly. For anyone over the age of 60, it's 5% case fatality rate so far. And there's 50 million, like 15% of the population in the world is over the age of 60. And in the United States, I think that's 50 million people. And even if, like the CDC said last week, that 30% of people are asymptomatic. So when you, even let's say 50% of people are asymptomatic, then you can just to be generous and say that, okay, well, let's say it's only 2.5% case fatality rate, right? Let's just cut it in half, which in some places it's 10% for over the age of 60. Let's just cut it down to 2.5%, which is way under what it actually is right now. That's still like 1.6 million people in the United States that would die from COVID if it went through herd immunity, right? If we tried to get herd immunity and get everybody, like 70-80% of the population to catch it, well, that's not good, right? So we got to be smart about how we reopen. And this person says, do I like bread? And I do love bread, but I'm doing keto now because keto is supposed to be good for your immune system and your testosterone and your hormones and stuff. So I've been doing keto the whole COVID thing. So I do miss bread, and I do like bread, but I'm not eating it right now. I mean, I eat some keto bread, but that can't really be considered bread. That stuff's it's barely cornbread. So anyway, that's it, guys. Don't want to go too much longer here. Hopefully this helps. Anybody who's kind of pondering the question of like, should I go support Black Lives Matter? Should I go to a rally? Am I going to catch COVID if I go to a rally? Because a lot of people want to go to support our local rally. And again, just going to leave you with that thought. If you are in a small town, if you're in a country or a county or something that's like, you're probably going to be not attacked by the police because it's going to be a peaceful protest. You're not going to be going downtown to Main Street and like looting all the small businesses, which is most likely everywhere in the world. If you're not in a big city, then I'd say you're 100% fine as long as you practice social distancing. Wear a mask, bring some eye goggles with you if you have them, and bring some hand sanitizer. Use the hand sanitizer quite a bit. Bring your own drinks, like bring your own bottle of water. You don't want to be sharing water or anything like that. And then, yeah, if you want to be extra safe, then just take your clothes off in the garage when you get home, put them in an Amazon box or something, go grab a shower. And then when you're done, wash the clothes right away. That's kind of like what all the nurses are having to do. It's their doffing procedure. They just take off the contaminated clothes. And then, when you're done washing, after you throw the clothes in the washer, wash your hands real good, and then you should be fine. So if you're worried, take all those steps and you should be good. And that will be good practice for you getting back into the swing of reality. If you've been obeying the social distancing lockdowns for the last couple of months, this will be a good test for your anxiety to see if you can hack it, if you can go to one of the protests or let your kid go to the protests, or maybe your husband or your wife really wants to go to one of the protests. Whatever it is, I do think as long as you're being safe and smart about it, you will be completely fine. So this wasn't this stream is not about, like, I'm not trying to debate about COVID. I'm just really trying to give people some hope and some a good mental model to think about how to go back into society as we reopen, because it's inevitable, and how to think about it for your kids and stuff, because I've been afraid of it. I've been afraid of catching it. I don't want to catch it. I mean, I'm healthy, but my wife has a compromised immune system, so I don't want to spread it to her. So I'm trying to avoid catching it. So maybe my anxiety is being rubbed off onto people a little bit unnecessarily. This guy says, I look like Snake Plissken, so I'll take that as a good thing. I don't know. Sounds like a Harry Potter character. All right. Thanks for watching, guys.